Hey guys, I'm Ubiru and welcome back to World of Warships. So the World of Warships 0.4 update has now been released. But this is the open beta update and it consists of some very nice things. So while we go through all the changes from 0.3.1 to 4.0, I will leave a contents page as I did with my 0.3.1 update for you guys to have a look at separate parts of the update. The first thing to mention is the Unified Premium account. The Unified Premium account from World of Tanks and World of Warplanes has now been implemented into World of Warships. This means that when you've activated Premium time on one of your games, whether it be World of Tanks, World of Warplanes, or World of Warships, it will be Premium for all three of those games. So this is good if you're consistently playing World of Tanks and World of Warships or World of Warplanes. It just makes things easier. So there has been a fairly big update in this patch about consumables. Now consumables have had a very big change from 0.3.1, including upgrades for the already existing consumables. I will flick through all the ships and I'll show you what the consumables are. I'm on my Arkansas beta here, which is the tier 4 American battleship. And here is the consumable page. So now this is no longer grayed out. You can actually go on the ammunition and consumable tab and purchase different consumables. So the first one available is the damage control party upgrade. So you see here we have the regular one, the damage control party 1, which is regular. You have a free upgrade, active for 20 seconds. It repairs your ship of fire, of torpedo damage, etc. And it has a reload time of 120 seconds. Now this is one of the new consumables, the damage control party 2. Now this costs gold or quite a lot of credits, 22,500 for this particular consumable. It works exactly the same as the Damage Control Party 1, with the exception that it has a faster reload time. Now that is quite unanimous for all of the new upgrades. They usually have just a better reload time with the exact same ability. So this is the first one, the Damage Control Party 2, which you get with every ship in the game. The second one is the Repair Party 2. Now it's the same thing. You have a typical repair button for battleships, which is the basic one here, which 28 seconds active time, heals you for 219 HP per second, has a reload time of 120 seconds, but the new one, the Repair Party 2, decreases the reload time to 80 seconds. It still has the same amount of charges, so it's largely the same consumable, with the exception of the reload change. We have a new interesting one, which I assume is for the high tier battleships, called Spotting Aircraft. Now this extends the firing range of your ship's main battery guns. And we have another one here called Catapult Fighter. Now this is new to 0.4, where you have a fighter which follows your ship around and shoots planes when they're within close proximity. So the first Catapult Fighter is active for 360 seconds and has a reload time of 180 seconds, and you can use this 3 times. The upgrade is slightly better only in terms of reload time, has the same amount of charges and the same active time. Another one is the Defensive Anti-Air Fire consumable, which increases the intensity of anti-air fire and decreases the accuracy of the enemy bombers. Now this is exactly the same as the previous one, but you can have the new upgrade, which decreases the reload time. Another one available on the Otago, which is the new Japanese Tier 8 cruiser, is this one here, which is a Hydroacoustic Search 1. Now this is again new to 0.4, increases the range of assured acquisition of enemy ships and torpedoes, including those within smoke. Torpedo acquisition is 2.52 kilometers and ship acquisition is 3.48 kilometers. Now again, there's an upgrade for this which decreases the reload time, but in terms of the actual ability, it's exactly the same. Another new one for 0.4 is the Engine Boost consumable. Now this is just for destroyers. We have this one here which is temporarily increases the maximum ship speed of this ship by 8%. It has 2 charges and is active for 120 seconds, and it has a reload time of 180 seconds. Now the slightly better version, which costs gold, has a better reload time and again is exactly the same ability. And the last consumable available is a smoke generator. And this again is exactly the same as in 0.3.1. It's a smoke generator, but all smoke generators have had a slight nerf. They're active for about half or less than half of the time they were in 0.3.1. Now this is only active for 20 seconds, has a reload time of 240 seconds, and you only can use it twice. The upgraded one, which costs gold, has a reload time of 160 seconds instead of 240, and is exactly the same ability. So the consumables are interesting, things like this with the increased speed, very nice in sticky situations when you're in your destroyers and you're trying to flee enemy battleships or enemy cruisers. That's really good with the smoke ability, with the decreased reload time. Also, the hydroacoustic search sounds good with the increased spotting range of torpedoes and ships within very close distance. Big change in 0.4 is the crew skill changes. There's been a massive change in crew skills in the game in 0.4, and I'll go through the whole list here to give you guys an idea of what to expect. There has been 7 new skills introduced, and I will go through those as we go along. Let's start with the first one, which is the Expert Loader perk. So when all your main battery guns are loaded, you can switch armament type depending on the target you're against, and the delay is minus 30% to reload time. So instead of waiting for the whole duration of a reload, you only have to wait for 70% of the time. Second skill is called the Basic Firing Training skill, which is minus 10% to reload time of guns with caliber of up to 155mm, and 10% to anti-air efficiency. Now this is primarily for secondary armament. This can be used quite effectively with the battleships with their very low caliber secondary armament guns, to decrease the reload time so you shoot more in brawls. The third one is called Basics of Survivability, which is minus 50% to time of repair, fire extinguishing, and recovery from flooding. Now this perk can come in handy with the bigger ships when you've been hit by a torpedo and you don't have your damage control ability up. So you have this perk and it decreases the time of repair by 15%. The fourth one is Situation Awareness, which is an indicator is displayed when your ship is detected by an enemy ship or aircraft. Now this perk is exactly the same as the perk in 0.3.1, with the exception that instead of the 3 line, it's on the 1 line. So it's a lot easier to get now, and this is necessary in the ships with very high concealment. The fourth skill is called the Expert Rear Gunner skill, which is plus 10% to efficiency of self-defense armament for aircraft with rear gunners. Now a lot of bombers in the game have a rear gunner to defend themselves against fighters. Now this perk increases the rear gunner's effectiveness by 10%, and when you're running a full bomber loadout in a carrier, this perk is necessary. The next one is called the Aiming Expert, and this is exactly the same as in 0.3.1, and this perk largely increases the aiming speed of your guns with the low caliber and the high caliber guns. Now this is better for the low caliber, it increases the speed by 2.5 degrees per second, whereas the bigger ones it's 0.7 degrees per second. But this perk still comes in handy with the bigger ships as well. The next one is the Torpedo Armament Expertise, which is minus 10% to reload time of torpedo tubes and minus 10% to servicing time of torpedo bombers. Now this is again exactly the same as before, and if you're running torpedoes in a destroyer, in a carrier, or a cruiser, then this perk is necessary. The next one, which is new, is the Fire Prevention mod, which is minus 7% to chance of fire. Now this is necessary probably in the battleships. When you get hit by high explosive from cruisers, you will be set on fire almost instantly, and if you don't have your damage control ability up, you can't fix that. So this helps to reduce the chance of fire. And the next one, which is an interesting one, is called the Incoming Fire Alert. Now this is an indicator of long-range enemy artillery firepower. So if you're having a big brawl with battleships, this perk will tell you when enemy has started firing at you from long distance, so you can move well in advance. And now we're getting into some of the better ones in the game. We have this one here, which is High Alert, minus 10% to reload time of your damage control party consumable. So this is best if you're in a very weak ship, a ship that takes lots of damage, takes lots of critical damage, or flooding or fire. The next one is called Vigilance, which extends torpedo acquisition range by 20%. Now, torpedo acquisition range is the spotting range of torpedoes, so you will see them from 20% further away, which gives you more time to move to avoid those torpedoes. The next one is called Dogfighting Expert, which increases the combat performance of fighters. Fighters with cruise speed lower than the enemies enjoy a temporary increase in their attack power. The bigger the difference in speed, the greater the difference in power. So this is a very good mod if you're using the fighter loadout with carriers, so you can very easily shoot down the enemy planes. The next one is a special skill, which is the first special skill available in this line at the moment. It's called Superintendent. Now this increases the capacity of consumables, plus 1 additional charge of all consumables mounted on a ship. So let's say you would use that on a battleship. Instead of having the repair, which only goes 3 times, you can have it 4 times. Or let's say we have it for a destroyer. Instead of having 2 charges of increased speed, we now have 3. Now this is a very good overall skill if you're very dependent on using consumables. The next artillery one is called Demolition Expert, which increases the chance to set the enemy ship on fire. It's plus 3% to chance of fire on target caused by a shell or a bomb. So this can be used by carriers. Carriers can use their dive bombers to set people on fire, and this increases the chance of fire by 3%. or you can just use a regular shell, regular high explosive shell from cruisers, destroyers or battleships, and increases the chance of fire by 3%. The next secondary armament perk is Advanced Fire Training. Now, this is plus 20% to firing range of guns with caliber of up to 155mm, and plus 20% to anti-air defense firing range. This increases the maximum firing range of secondary armament guns and anti-air capability guns, so you can fire your secondary armament at longer distances, which can be very useful in the later tiered battleships when you want to brawl from, let's say, 9 kilometers away. The next survivability perk is called Last Stand. When the engine or steering gear receive critical damage, they continue to operate without a penalty. Your ship remains able to move and maneuver with the engine or steering gear critically damaged. This is very important if you have gears or engines that break very quickly. This Last Stand perk negates all the critical damage to your engine or your steering gear, and you can use the ship normally. Now, this perk is very good in destroyers, where they're very susceptible to critical damage to engines and steering gears. The next aircraft perk is Aircraft Servicing Expert, which is plus 5% to aircraft survivability and minus 10% to servicing time of all aircraft. Now, this again is necessary in carriers. You have a reduced servicing time and an increase in health of your planes. A fantastic perk overall. And now we're on the last tier, the most expensive perks in the game. We have this one here, which is the artillery perk, which is called Last Chance. Minus 9% to reload time of all types of armament if the ship's health is less than 20%. Now, this perk is very similar to the World of Tanks perk, where if you take in 90% of the health of your tank, your guns would reload a lot faster. So the minus 9% reload time can come in handy with the bigger ships, but with the smaller ships with very fast firing rates anyway, this won't really come in handy. So I highly recommend this upgrade just for battleships or cruisers. The last survivability perk is called Preventive Maintenance, which is minus 34% the chance of incapacitation of modules. So this perk sounds very good for ships that have very weak turrets that can be very easily knocked out. So this perk would be necessary in the Atlanta, the Tier 7 premium American cruiser, where the guns always get destroyed. The last concealment one is called Concealment Expert, which is minus 10% to detectability of destroyers, minus 12% of cruisers, minus 40% of battleships, and minus 16% of aircraft carriers. Now, this is a very good perk if you don't have very good concealment, or if you have fantastic concealment and you want to improve that more. The last aircraft perk is called Air Supremacy, which is plus 1 fighter and plus 1 bomber. Now, this is an increase in how many bombers and fighters in a squadron. So with the Americans, it's at standard 5, which would increase to 6, and with the Japanese, instead of 4, you'd have 5. So that extra torpedo and that extra fighter plane can come in handy on the battlefield. The last perk available on the special skills line is called Jack of All Trades. This is minus 10% to reload time of all mounted consumables. Now, this perk is very good with consumables with very long reload times. It decreases those by 10%. I would definitely use this perk on a ship with lots and lots of consumables so I can fully utilize the perk. So that is the current configuration. Some of them are very, very interesting. So the next thing to look at is on the profiles. We have these typical levels. There is now a new one. So Tier 6 is the one I've got to so far. Tier 7 is the signal flags, which I haven't quite unlocked just yet. And the Tier 8 is camouflage. Now, camouflage is a new thing implemented in 0.4, which reduces the detectability of your ship in battle and decreases the firing accuracy of your enemy. Now, camouflages can be purchased for in-game currency, but you can't use them until level 8. Similar to how signal flags work, one of them is expended per battle once you've mounted it on your ship. Okay, so let's get to the global changes in World of Warships. So the first thing is the addition of the new USS Midway, which is the Tier 10 American carrier. This ship looks very formidable, very modern, and it can use jet planes. The next change is the addition of the new Tier 8 premium Japanese cruiser, the Otago. Now, this is the Otago. I did just purchase it to see what it's like. It's actually a fantastic ship, very similar in competency to the Miyoko and the Megami. This does mean, however, that the Tier 8 spot for the Japanese has been taken up by the Otago. So, unfortunately, the Kitakami, the Tier 8 derpy ship, no longer exists. It has been removed from the game, probably for the best, though it wasn't a very good ship overall. They may bring back the Kitakami in the future, but I highly doubt it. The Japanese starter ship, the Kotori, has been removed, and replaced with this ship here, which is the Hashidate. And this ship has a fantastic rate of fire of 11 rounds per minute and a very good turn time of only 18 seconds. So this ship is a lot better than the Kotori and a very good starting ship. Some specific changes now. The smokescreen effect with your smokescreen consumable has been decreased. The effect only lasts between 65 and 97 seconds now, as opposed to 90 and 120 seconds. The smoke deployment only lasts for 20 seconds as well now, instead of 40 or 50 seconds as it was before. The smoke has notably been nerfed. It was quite overpowered in earlier versions of the game, where you rush towards an enemy battleship in a destroyer, you pop smoke, they can't see you, you disable your anti-air capability, you go closer and closer, they still can't see you, you deploy your torpedoes and you get a free battleship kill. So this probably won't be the case anymore. It's going to be a lot harder for destroyers to perform well against the bigger ships. Smoke deployment for cruisers is now 15 seconds and lasts for 80 seconds. Another change is the damage control party of destroyers. It used to have a reload time of only 40 seconds, and now that's been changed to 60 seconds. The devs have obviously seen how quickly destroyers overcome critical damage and easily repair, so they've nerfed it and increased it by 20 seconds. But you do have this perk here, which is the Damage Control Party 2, which gets it back to the normal 40 seconds for 15 gold or 22,500 credits. Not to mention that the charges have been decreased as well. Instead of 3 charges or 4 charges, you only have 2 charges of smoke on destroyers and cruisers. There has been some changes with high explosive shell damage. Again, the calculation formula has changed again. Now the amount of explosives in the shell and the caliber plays a larger effect in damage calculations. So small caliber high explosive now does far less damage than you would expect. Cruiser damage does about the same, and battleship high explosive damage should now do a lot more damage. There's been some changes with the accuracy of battleships within very close distance, if you can actually get your guns around. Within 5 kilometers now, battleships are far more accurate at firing at targets. There's been a change with the Tier 8 American battleship, the North Carolina. Its anti-air capability has been nerfed, albeit by only a small amount, but still it has been nerfed. It was quite overpowered before, and now it seems to be quite balanced. There's also been some nerfs with the spotting planes in the game. The patrol radius for these spotting planes and catapult fighters has been slightly reduced. There's been some interesting changes with the high-end carriers in the game. We'll start with the Americans, the Tier 9 Essex. Mainly the addition of new flexible types of loadouts. We have here the fighters, 3 squadrons of fighters and 2 bombers. And here we have a mixed bunch of 1 fighter, 2 torpedo bombers and 2 regular bombers. And with some of the Japanese loadouts, it's 1 fighter squadron, 3 torpedo bombers and 3 regular bombers, and 3 fighters, 2 torpedo bombers and 2 regular bombers. So the loadouts for the high-end carriers has been changed. The Atlanta has had some changes with its surveying cameras. They have been refined. With the Atlanta's very low velocity on its guns, they probably refined the cameras to make it easier for you to actually see your target as you fire on it. In the past, the Atlanta's been a lot of trouble trying to get the target in sight and being able to fire on it. So that's been changed for the better. The New Mexico has an ability now to launch an air reconnaissance spotter, which has been added to the last hull of the New Mexico. So you can't actually see it here, but when you purchase this upgrade here, it will give you a spotter plane. The Kuma, the Tier 4 Japanese cruiser, has had some changes as well. It now has an ability to launch a catapult fighter, which has been added to the last hull modification. So when you purchase this one here, you will now get a catapult fighter. The Furutaka is exactly the same, the Tier 5 Japanese cruiser. With the last hull upgrade, you can now obtain a catapult fighter. And catapult fighters are the new fighters that follow your ship around and shoot planes when they're within close proximity. The Zao, the fantastic Tier 10 Japanese cruiser, now has a slightly increased hull armor, speed increase from 31 knots to 34 knots, and an increased main caliber reload time of about 2 seconds. But with the increased armor and increased speed of the ship, the nerf with the main battery reload time seems about fair. The Zao has previously been known for firing and destroying enemies very, very quickly. With the Miyogi, the Tier 4 Japanese battleship, there is now a new last hull upgrade. This hull upgrade increases the gun range by 3 kilometers and some other changes as well, including better optics and a better anti-air capability of plus 20. And the addition of a recon plane, which is with the last modification. From the Congo, the Tier 5 Japanese battleship, all the way to the Tier 8, the Amagi, there has been some changes with the first hull upgrades. The first hull upgrades are slightly worse than the other ones. Now these hull upgrades will be the ones you start out with, but the upgraded ones will be unchanged. The Tier 10 Yamato, the fantastic Tier 10 Japanese battleship, now has a slightly better concealment, and the plane spotting range has been lowered from 17 kilometers to 16 kilometers. And some changes for the Megami, the very good Tier 8 Japanese cruiser. Fortunately, no changes with the DPM. It still remains as one of the best ships in the game in terms of damage per minute, but it has some changes in terms of detectability and spotting range. So it now has an increased distance of detectability by firing by 350 meters, an increased range of vision by 1 kilometers. It now has a slightly worse concealment by 2 kilometers in terms of ships, and a slightly worse concealment in terms of planes by 1 kilometer. So the Megami has mostly been nerfed in terms of concealment, so you can see the Megami faster, but it still remains a fantastic ship in terms of DPM. It's good to know that the sun rays have been changed on most maps. I've noticed a lot that the atmosphere, the sun, in the maps is very glaring. It puts you off, you can't really see your targets, it's very bright. They've reduced that to be less blinding. There's also been some graphic and sound changes. The visual effect for torpedo explosions has been improved. The torpedoes now leave a realistic foam trace when they're travelling through the water. Sounds have been changed slightly in the game in terms of some guns. The ship movement sounds have been fully remade, so you'll notice when you're moving through the water that you will sound substantially different to how it was in 0.3.1. The aircraft movement sounds have been reworked and now are more realistic. But overall, the audio performance in the game has been improved in 0.4. There has been some changes in terms of interface in the game, and this new mode called Alternative Battle Interface Mode, where it's not necessary to hold down a key such as the Alt key when you're looking at the details of the ships. You go into settings and go into controls and tick the Battle Interface Mode, and it no longer makes it necessary for you to hold down the Alt key when you're looking at details of the ship. Instead of that, you just click it once and it will highlight the details of the ship for the whole battle. There's also been some system changes. There's been an error which has caused the black screen in between map loading and the battle screen, which many of you may have noticed, and they have fixed that. So now you won't see the black screen anymore. The game's interface has been changed to be more optimized for low-end PCs, and the port screen also loads faster. And they've also improved battle performance, fixed the micro freezes, and they fixed sort of general performance issues in World of Warships. Also, loading times to get into a battle has been improved as well. A lot of people, including myself, have had trouble getting into battles quickly, but now they've optimized the game in such a way to improve the loading times. Okay, so these have been the changes in the World of Warships 0.4 update. So we get a nice new array of consumables, nice new array of crew skills, and some nice changes to some ships. So this has been the main changes in 0.4. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.